Hello everyone, welcome to this special edition of Diplomacy Break, where we explore the intersection of energy resilience, interdependence and geopolitical risk. Today we are honored to be joined by Mr. Michelangelo Cellozi, Executive President of Transmet Engineering Network and a distinguished expert in energy system engineering with decades of experience across Europe's most critical energy infrastructure. We met today at a turning point in Europe's electrification story. On April 28, 2025, the Iberian Peninsula was struck by one of the most significant blackouts in European history, an event that affected more than 50 million people, suspended transportation, shut down the hospitals, and it wasn't just a regional technical failure, it was a geopolitical shock. Today, we will not only analyze the technical cause of this incident, but also look beyond into its implication for European energy policy and interconnection, diplomacy, and strategic preparedness. Let us begin. Floor is yours, Mr. Cellozi.
Anyway, this is a general description of the event, of course, because the specific condition, the sequences of events have to be analyzed and organized. Then, number one, 2 days before, some imbalances between energy supply and demand on the Spanish electricity systems had already been reported in Spain, but something did not work, and ENSOI is analyzing the phenomenon with available data, the latest, the blackout phenomenon. It is evident that the distributed renewable energy sources had a role in this situation. It's not a responsibility, a role, I said, because they can contribute. Usually, is very used. We do not say that we do not use renewable energy sources, of course. But we have to organize our action plans. What I mean, the diffusion of renewable RES power plants, renewable energy sources, power plants, are distributed for their nature. They are distributed on the territory and on the grid. And the connection to the grid is very diffused in this for this kind of power plants, and often even in not only in high level of voltage, but also mid level of voltage. That means distribution grids, not transmission grids. That's clear, the difference between transmission grid and distribution grids is not only a structural difference, there is a functional difference. And then functional management procedures. That's because I want to separate the transmission system and the distribution system. Is not only a technicality, is a management approach is different. Then the renewable energy sources are connected to the mid voltage grids. That means some grids that are not seen by the central control of TEIAS in our case, the transmission system operator. Then this is a first problem, the coordination between distribution grids and transmission grids. That's because usually the framework rule are established by the authority, which is it is not a technical operator, is the regulator. But the regulator have a different approach, and sometimes we have to discuss, we have to communicate, not to discuss, we have to communicate for avoiding mistake and this kind of consequences. Then let's go on. The first problem is the frequency regulation. Do you understand the definition of okay? I don't know which is your background. Is a frequency regulation? Are you an engineer?
We can explain it for our audience, maybe.
Okay. Then we have 3 levels of frequency regulation: primary, secondary, and tertiary. The primary regulation is automatic, made by power plants, but not RES power plants, or not yet, just in this moment. Then the primary regulation is made by thermal power plants, maybe gas-fired or nuclear. Then they are acting in an automatic procedure to stabilize the range of frequency on the grid. Okay? It's automatic. The first problem is the time. Okay? In this case, we are identified a first possible problem. In that moment, and 12:30 of the day before yesterday, the contribution to the demand, the power demand on the grid, was 80% covered by RES power plant. That's okay? And only 20% by gas-fired. For a lot of reasons, in that moment, the nuclear power plants were separated from the grid, were not running in that moment. But for a problem of the price of the energy price on the Borsa Elettrica, the bourse on the market. Okay. Then this means that the primary reserve was minimal in that moment. Okay, this is a first problem, but not only the only cause, because all the blackouts are never generally, but usually are never caused by a single cause, are always depending on a sequence of events interacting among them. That's because we have to reconstruct the sequence of the events to understand why the blackout happened. There is never a single cause. Is always a sequence of events. Then let's go. The second problem is the hybrid grids. Today, we have garden. In my garden, they are working in my garden. Excuse me. Just a moment. It's passing. Oh, hybrid grids. What I mean, in our grids today are the coexistence of alternate current components and direct current components. For example, the production of energy production from renewable energy sources is indirect current. Then we have to transform in alternate current and to connect to the grid. That's okay? The thermal power plants produce directly in alternate current because we use electricity always in alternate current. The lift, all our uses are in alternate current, of course. Then we have to manage the hybrid grids in direct and alternate current at the same time. There is some transmission system operator which is more used to manage this kind of hybrid grids. And we in Italy is a peninsula. Then we always used since 60 years the interconnection in direct current. Then we are used to manage the hybrid system, but other system operators are not used to be. For example, Spain have a weak connection to the rest of European grids. Only 2 interconnection in direct current across the mountains between Spain and France. This means that interconnection has not been very efficient role during the blackout, but is not a responsibility in this case also of the transmission system operator. This is a responsibility of the energy policy of a country, and then is another kind of, we are not evaluating the energy policies of each country. This is another thing. But as engineer, we have to understand what it happens. Then, number 1, we said the loss, blackout definition is the loss of grid control. When I do not control the grid, this is a condition of blackout. Even the definition of blackout is changing in the our current structure of new energy systems, because we are changing the energy systems. That's clear. And then we have to change even the approach, the management of the grid, the rules, etc. It's not only a problem of construction of power plants, but we have to manage the transition of all the systems, lines, grids, power plants, interconnection, market rules. This is the system. That's okay. Then that's because the problem is the first time that we face so critical stability phenomenon. This is a classic stability phenomenon when offer and demand of energy on the grid are not balanced, and this may be for a lot of reasons. For example, if there is an over capacity of generation, in this case they have to cut the overcapacity, but the cutting is not in real time. The real time is we are the manage of generation and central control of electricity is under human decision to cut, not to cut a single power plant. This is not in the framework of the security, because the electricity phenomena are diffusing in at the light speed. Then there is no time. There are milliseconds, not 10 minutes, not 4 seconds. 4 seconds is enormous for all of us, because the phenomena are in real times in the range of milliseconds. This is the first. This is a classic problem of electricity. It's not a new. The news are the kind of power plants which respond or not respond automatically to difference in frequencies. That's okay? I can repeat. The renewable power plants have not the capacity to compensate, to balancing the stability of frequency. The classical thermal power plant can be do this function automatically. Is operate by a synchronous generator. I do not want to use only very specific, because this discussion have to be, our objective is to discuss, to have some knowledge of what happened in this case. Then alternate generators and synchronous generators. The solar power plant is an electromagnetic generation without components in movement. It's all statics. classical, the thermal power plants use a synchronous generator. This is a rotating machine, is not static, can be react automatically to a change in frequency electricity. We can manage the direct current produced by renewable energy sources, but we have to change the management control, the control system of the power generation. And this is not diffused in this moment. For example, do you know the BESS, battery electricity system, BESS,
BESS.
BESS?
Actually, we heard it, but for our audience, maybe you can also make a small explanation for that.
Okay. The BESS are the electrochemical batteries for the system of electrochemical batteries for storage the energy generation. This is a tool for manage the rest, the renewable energy sources generation, but it is not diffused, not yet. We have to imagine how to imagine, to design and to realize new energy systems for meeting direct current and alternative current systems. It's not easy. It takes a lot. Sometimes it's not a decision you can take by law, for example. It's not a ministerial decree which can realize in real time this evolution. Is a system evolution which takes some time. We can to analyze in next few minutes which are the actions for which we have to take after a serious phenomena like a blackout. I think that this blackout has been enormous for involving Spain, Portugal, and south of France. The French colleagues are very expert and they opened, they separate immediately the French grids from the Spanish one, but is not only to protect the French grids, because in that moment it was impossible to protect the Spanish grids. Then we are has been obliged to cut the two grids and then to restart the interconnection. And this has been made in not a lot of time. We can see about 6 hours for 70% of the Spanish grids. It is a very short time. Usually it takes 1 day, 24 hours, not 6 hours, with a lot of risk. There are terrible risks for hospital, airport, air traffic, even car traffic. you can imagine the risk for accident on the roads.
Social
That,
cause. Yeah.
of course, is like an earthquake. The consequences are more or less the same. Then the loss of control of the grid depends on a series of interconnecting causes, interacting causes. This is clear. That's because it's difficult to answer immediately without all the analysis which are ongoing. The interconnections participate to the frequency control, but in some cases not in real times. That's because we have to manage the real times. And we are speaking about milliseconds, as we said. This is the system approach. This is the difference between the classical approach to the energy system, which is a complex system, very complex. You can imagine, in Italy, for example, 20 years ago, there were less than 100 power plants connected to the grid. 100 big power plants connected in very high voltage. From the very high voltage, the energy flow and power flow arrive until the final use, crossing the high voltage, mid voltage, and the low voltage. This was the rules and the organization. Today in Italy, there are about 2,000, not 2,000, 200,000 power plants, 200,000 instead of 100. 200,000 is completely impossible to apply the traditional grid management approach. The difference in number, in the size, the distribution is enormous, is another history, another field. We have to imagine this new. But it's difficult to convince the public decision, the policy level about these constraints, because they doesn't understand. It's not only a problem of scientific or technically knowledge, is a sensitivity for this kind of problem. Then it's difficult even today. You know very well the energy systems. Then is not a normal level of a political level. You can imagine what it means to convince the political level about the possible consequences of some decisions, because they think, yes, this is a possible consequence, then is not sure, no, and then we go on. The blackout are very useful for this lesson learning, because they have obliged to understand. because they cannot light the lamp, they cannot use your car, you cannot use the plane, and then become a regional problem. Regional because all the European grids, even the Turkish one, are connected. And then we have to coordinate all these evolutions. Is not useless, is dangerous if not a grid, the difference in speed in the evolution of the different grids interconnected. Because the fault speed propagation, we can say propagation, diffusion of the fault is at light speed, is immediate. Then we have to protect, in this case, the single grid. Even if the interconnection usually is very useful to a higher security of the electricity system, because the higher margin of reserve which you can use, because you can share the reserve of all the grids interconnected, which is enormous, but it is also with some risk. We have to manage the risk, then be aware of the risk, and to manage the risk, because the situation of isolated grid is not a good idea. Is very better have an interconnected system, because the inertia, you can imagine, inertia is not an electrical concept. Inertia is concept of is a mechanical concept. But in this case, you can imagine if you have a motorbike at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour, is a motorbike, that's okay. But if you have a big truck at 10 kilometers per hour of speed, is very, very dangerous. Then to have an interconnected system, the inertia is bigger than, and then the risk of unbalancing is lower. Then we have to encourage the interconnection for shared action in order to reduce the risk, even if in some case, when you have no time to intervene, we have the only solution is to cut the connection and to restart. This is a risk, important risk, relevant risk, because blocking two nations for 6 hours is a terrible, terrible risk. But after that, they rapidly recovered the functions, all the essential functions. Then we can describe these kind of of actions. Where is? Because you can understand that I have take this the occasion to speak with you is very useful because we are organizing our communication.
Actually, when we were listening your presentation, it was really detailed, and we had a few questions, but already I got my answer. But still, for audience, I will ask you again to repeat what we talked. So we are really thankful for that. And I wanted to ask you one question from our audience, because I also wonder. I also read on the news, it was 15 gigawatt lost in 5 seconds, right? When blackout happening.
Just a moment, please repeat. Yeah, I was looking. Just a moment. I have to find my minute regeneration. Where are? I find. Then please repeat.
It was 15 gigawatt lost in 5 seconds when we talked about this.
15 gigawatt, maybe more or less.
Yeah, and one of our audience asked about maybe technical. This kind of a sudden power loss, how can be a risk for modern grids, or how modern grids be equipped for this response? When you think about system engineering or electrical engineering perspective.
The problem is not only the level of the power available, is the structure of the power offer. In that moment, 15 gigawatt was 80% of the global demand on the grid. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is natural in the case of high level of green generation. You have to be aware about this risk and how to manage this risk. That means storages. Then 15 gigawatt is a lot in percentage of the demand of gigawatt on the grid. In order to have a sufficient margin of primary reserve, we said we have primary, secondary, and tertiary reserve. Tertiary is power plants which are not connected to the grid, then is not our problem in this moment. But primary reserve is the automatic margin of reserve, which cannot supply by renewable energy sources, or we can make the renewable energy power plant to supply this service, but we have to design the system to consent the renewable energy sources power plants to give this service to the grid. They can do, but not now, not yet. Then I don't know if I answered to question, but the number of gigawatt is not an absolute number which is interesting for us in this case of balancing.
Thank you so much.
What we have to do? We have to do, but there are 3 levels of action. In real time, very short-term time, some milliseconds. Remember this number. There is no man which can take a decision or an action in some millisecond. That's impossible. That automation is absolutely necessity, need of automatic system of regulation. We can do, but we can understand this, how to design this system and to realize this system, regulation systems. Then the first level in very short term, the only thing we have to do is grid restart, grid restoration, restoration of essential function we can realize with the resources available. That means the power plants that I have and the power lines that are able to transmit this power. That it depends on the causes, and we can understand the day after, not in this moment. The man. It is difficult also to separate technical decision and political decision. Today is not easy to do. For example, in this case, 1 year ago, there has been a blackout in the Balkan region. Involved the Albania power system, Montenegro power system, there were three nations, but very little, but because Albania is as a 3 million of people. You can imagine. It's not Istanbul. Istanbul is bigger than Albania. Then is not the case of the Turkish power system. That were a little, we can say, a little power system, and not a lot discussed. But the problem was the same, because the tools available to balancing the grid are different in the different countries. For example, in Albania, there were a lot of hydroelectric power plants, very important in percentage, always in percentage of the national demand. And then they could manage this balancing, because hydroelectric power systems are the exceptional tools for regulating the grids, because it's very, very rapid for taking in, for rising and for reducing the power plants in the emission in the grid. But not a lot of people knew about this. But even if it has been in June of 2024, then it's not 10 years ago. That's, in this case, there are more or less 50 million peoples involved. 50 million peoples involved. And that's become a political problem and not a technical one. But the problem is the same. The nature of the problem is the same. Then, very short term to restart. The short term actions are the phase of analysis of the sequences of the events, which are the causes of loss of control of the grid. In the past, blackout was defined like a collapse of the grid. Today, we speak about loss of control. That means that depends how large is the mistake, the problem. If Istanbul failed, it is a large system. But it's a town, yes, but a very big town. The same in Egypt. In Cairo town, the blackout is something. When I go in Cairo, I prefer to stay, if possible, at the first level of the hotel. Because I don't know, but I prefer to stay to weekly abandon the hotel. That is very dangerous. Anyway, then the second, the short-term action analyzes the causes and removal of the causes. What means removal? Optimizing the available network resources. I have to use all the network resources, which are power plants and power lines. We have to stay away from the margin of the risk. In this case, there are a lot of lobby that can press the system operator. For sure, you will arrive phone, please give me to produce. For sure, we have to manage also this kind of problem in case of during the past there were not this problem because the integrated and the public service was independent from the market. In this case, there are market interests which are very important because they are the driver of the energy system development. And there are people which invest their money for building the power plants, and then they want to produce always, but the rules are essential in this moment for optimize the using of the available tools, power plants and power lines. But there is a mid-term for the phase. We have to planify. We have to learn the lesson and then to planify the grid development and the energy system generation park. You know that the government cannot decide which power plant, where there is a market, you cannot decide which is the power plant can be built or not. There are the rules. The system operator have to authorize the connection to the grid. Then we have the tools to address the market development, because the transmission system operator has the role and the responsibility to say you can realize the power plant there or not, or you have to realize it in another zone. Only the transmission system operator can say, yes, you can connect to the grid or not. Then is a strong responsibility, which not ever is compliant with the political level and with the market level. The word is complexity. We have to manage complexity. Do you know the blackout on July of the last year was a telematic blackout, which caused the block of the airport, hospital in all the United States and also Australia and Canada and something in UK. Do you know? Yeah. If you want,
actually, it would be a great pleasure to hear
an article on this, because I said today this is a telematic cyber problem. Tomorrow may be energy problem, because telecommunication and energy are strictly interconnected. Because today we use a management system. The technical term is intelligence organization. Intelligence is all of us, we speak about artificial intelligence, but the translation of intelligence in Italian is smart, is not intelligence. Intelligence is another meaning. The meaning of intelligence is how to collect all the indicator I need to describe the function of the system. It's like intelligence for the political level, no? Intelligence is how to elaborate. I have to register, to elaborate, and to interpret the numbers in order to describe the energy functions. And this is very powerful. Also very expensive in terms of energy, but this is another question. Then the third action is the mid-term and involve the grid planning, distribution and transmission. And distribution and transmission have to be coordinated. Today is impossible. because the European rule, you know, I am coming from NL, and I was in NL when was integrated, the vertical integrated. After the new rule, the separation of generation, transmission, and distribution have to be absolute. Is a must to separate, must to do. And then the transmission system operator cannot speak with the distribution system operator. But this is crazy, because today we are obliged to coordinate. Our regulator, NL, today in Italy has power plants and distribution system. And the direction, the NL is a building in which there are the energy generation and distribution grids. No, you have to separate it. You know, no, there is no door. You have to separate, separate the two activities. We are it's completely crazy.
There was any reason behind of that, or it was just like regulators or governments or political decision? Because as you told, we cannot find a logical reason for separating that.
Because usually they are not. That I do not want to speak about our regulators. I don't like this kind of, because the functional coordination have to be compliant with the market rules. And you this cannot become an ideological constraint. You have to understand and the way to make compliant the different functions, and transparency is always possible, but no more than transparencies. Like in the stock market, for the stock market, there are differences, there are rules, but we cannot separate. You cannot. I want to speak with you. We came to speak each other, to exchange, and this is it's the same differences. The reference with the market trouble. There are legal and illegal cooperation. It's difficult to make, but this is necessary. Then, not only grid planning, not only power plans, national plan, and framework of rules, because decision depends on the rules. Then we have to optimize, to update the rules on the experience of this exceptional experience of blackout, in order not to repeat the same mistake. My first boss always said to me, your attention, you have to make new mistake, but not to repeat the old mistake. Then we try to to make new mistake, but not to repeat old mistake. Is criminal. It should be criminal.
Yeah.
This is, I have a list also, but I have to. I cannot give you this. There is the list of the real-time decision, how to start up or restart up all a system, what can do nuclear power plants, thermal power plants, and the renewable energy sources power plants. But I will write, and I can send to you my article on the telematic blackout, which has been terrible.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a great pleasure for getting it, and maybe we can publish it too. And thank you so much for the all explanation, and it was all detailed. Actually, we got a few questions, but already in your presentation, all of them had an answer. But maybe for repeating, we can take a few questions more without passing to our time. But I wanted to ask one question. It was about replacing Spain facilities, energy facilities. What lesson can we draw from Spain recovery strategy, especially the use of hydro and gas facilities in black start scenario? I think Spain was mainly
on LinkedIn, has been published on LinkedIn. Is my former colleagues that published that.
Yes, it was because they are saying that it's like Spain was mainly Spain was using solar energy
on LinkedIn this morning. Yes.
Okay.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
What do you think about it? It is like it is the good scenario for black start if we use the hydro and gas facilities instead of using mainly solar energy and renewable energy. What do you think about that?
Is very useful. It's part of the experience. We have to remember when you have to do some decision for the future. It's very useful to be aware of the implication of the consequences and how to do is the how to do for the energy transition, prudent energy transition if possible. It takes times.
And when we talked about during the presentation, can we guess that actually Iberian Peninsula is a little weak when we talk about electricity infrastructure? Because I think interconnection between these Iberian land and Europe have differences. This is what I understood about that. So what need to be do for supporting Iberian part for European continent? And also we can take attention when this blackout started. As you also mentioned, France started to cut the interconnection between the Iberian island and I think took support from Morocco, right? From Morocco. That's what I read from news. So when we face these kind of the shocks, like blackout shocks, like a huge blackout shock, do you think that cross-border support can be like a lifesaver for that kind of the situation? What do you think about that?
It's very useful the role of neighbor grids to restart in the face of restart. So in particular, that's true that the Morocco is always the same problem. In Morocco, they developed the power system, but not the transmission system. They have they have a weak transmission system connected to the Spanish one. And even if they have some very good, very expert people in this case. For example, the chairman of the regulator in Morocco was the director of the transmission system in Morocco. Then he knows very well this kind of problem. But the problem is to communicate this, the needs and compliance, the needs of compliance of the grid and system generation in order to raise the security of the service. In this case, the role of Morocco has been important because there are three interconnection in Spain, the southern one with Morocco, and two line with the French. But it is again a weak transmission system because the market asks for electricity generation. The transmission for them is an option and a cost. Then we can to delay. No, we have to prepare before in order to promote the expansion, the development of the transmission of the generation system, the generation park. This is very important, not to postpone. Transmission grid development is the condition for the generation development, not the consequence. You have to plan the grid in order to promote the generation development, not the contrary. The Morocco is also an open country in terms of rule, open to the market, and I sent to you a report on the possible cooperation between Italian companies and Turkish companies, and the role of the universities, because you have a special role to communicate these needs. And yesterday, your president was in Rome, as you know, I think. There are a lot of important opportunities, but each country cannot do alone to enlarge the opportunities, because they are international opportunities. There cannot be alone. We have to cooperate in the gas, and gas and electricity are the two faces of the same money. Then in Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum should have to involve Turkey, Syria, and Lebanon. And this is the condition for developing a regional system. If not, it is impossible. It is a little project and not a regional project. And the connection between the Balkan region from Italy to Turkey. These are two. And the third, last but not least, I think that our President, Mrs. Meloni, I don't know what they speak each other, but I think that the IMEC, how to pronounce IMEC project? IMEC project?
IMEC project is
IMEC
right.
project between India, Middle East, and Europe. And then you are the gateway, the Oriental, Eastern gateway for the European market, and Italy is the central gateway. But we have to connect, not to separate. Connecting system means connecting market. And and then there are a lot of opportunities. In this case, events like the blackout are lessons to be learned in order to promote the transition and not to block the transition. I hope.
Thank you so much. We already passed our time. I want to thank you, Mr. Cellozi, for your valuable insight, and thank you to all participants for joining us in the essential discussion. It was actually like an analysis of what went wrong, as you told, still as this is ongoing on. Maybe we will just get results, real results, maybe after months. And there will be many discussions, gossips, or many scenarios that which we will sometimes be shocked. But
we hope to meet you directly and not only online. But anyway, and excuse me for my poor English, because my normal English language is French usually, because we worked a lot with North Africa. And then I used more, my language, working language is French more than English, but English is obligatory in this, of course. And then maybe next time, do you know there are a lot of words in Turkish language exactly the same that the Southeast Italy?
Southeast Italy.
Yes.
I was just reading that there were many
because you are too much young. That's because in the past, Southeast Italy was part of the Eastern Emperor when the empire, Roman Empire, was divided in Eastern and Western.
Byzantine?
Yes, we were part of the eastern part of the old Roman Empire. And then, do you know the cheese, the famous cheese you love and we love, which is the name?
What is his name?
Kashkaval. Kashkaval?
Yes, I know.
Italian in Southeast Italy is exactly the same word, Kashkaval, and even jacket.
Yes, exactly.
Identical. But anyway, this is not only a joke. I hope really we can discuss and to share these events, because are very important and not usual. Then we can change. I cannot access to the ENSOE analysis. Do you know why? I don't know. I don't imagine. Because the responsible is my son, and my son don't speak to me during this period. At the end of the analysis, you will be the first to, when it's possible, even to me, because I have this is my I have no information from ENSOE, and I understand. I have not interfere with his work, and we have to wait. And usually the analysis will be published after a right time, in order to separate the news discussions with the analysis. I hope in 15 days we could have the analysis and we can share.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for this information, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And it was really like great webinar for us too. Every time when I have a webinar with you, I am always learning new things. It's really detailed and insight for me, and I'm pretty sure it is for audience also same. Thank you so much again, and see you soon, as soon as possible, and talking about the result of the analyzing of this blackout. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will send a little more organized memory for you, because I have wrote yesterday evening.
Okay, it will be great pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's a
See you
good
soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.